In this episode, we have Ross Everett.
We get the opportunity as comedians to deliver so much joy and happiness. And we could either go into this world as like, it's like a I win, you lose, you win, I lose, or it could be a win-win. And I think that there's a way to do comedy as a win-win, where it's like we're both having fun with each other.
Welcome back, Purpose Seekers. This is episode number 144 with the Ross Everett. Ross is an award-winning actor, comedian, internet personality, and writer. His YouTube videos have been viewed over 45 million times, landing him on the front page of HuffPost, BuzzFeed, and Reddit. His comedy has been featured on NBC, Hulu, Fox, and Sirius XM. He can be seen touring with his critically acclaimed comedy show, Stop Stopping the Unstoppable, a personal development seminar parody where he plays a motivational speaker, Dale Thorhammer. He is currently performing his transformational comedy show on August 14th in LA at the Dynasty Typewriter at 8 p.m. So if you're in LA, go check him out. I love how he combines personal development with comedy, and in this episode, we talk all about it. So listen up and enjoy. What's up, Ross?
What's up?
I feel like you've really boosted my ego in the 3 minutes that we've been sitting next to each other.
My job here is done. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I made you laugh.
Yeah.
And I made a comedian laugh. Like, that really made my day. So how'd you get into comedy?
Are we hard to make laugh?
I mean, you really, it was an authentic laugh.
Yeah, it was because it was an authentic moment. Like, it wasn't like you told a joke. You didn't ask a question. You made a statement, and then you were like you were looking to start a conversation around it, but there was no question. And you realized it in that moment, and then you were like, what do you guys think? And just that true, honest, authentic moment of, oh, I have to say more, was so funny to me.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you got the humor.
I did. I do.
How'd you get into comedy?
I don't think there was a time where I ever wasn't in comedy. I loved laughter. I loved things that made me laugh from a very young age. And if people were funny, like, everything else was forgivable. I think we all know those people who it's like, oh, they're an asshole, but they're so funny. It was just always something that I saw as like, oh, well, like if you're funny, I like you. So
were your parents funny?
No, not intentionally. Like my dad has had some moments for sure, but I realized that my dad has good comedy thoughts but poor delivery. And my mom is like adorable in her own way. Like, my mom running is very funny because she's like, she always looks like she's like a duck running away from a car, like it's like this waddle to it. But yeah, no, they aren't like people that could like really engage a crowd necessarily in a comedic way.
Yeah. Yeah. So delivery is key though.
Yeah. Oh, delivery is all of it.
Yeah.
The most important thing in comedy, they say, is timing. And there's even that joke. The most important thing in comedy is timing. Yeah, timing. Yeah. So
I was late on that timing.
But that delivery method is like, I think that's just like applies to life. Is like how are you delivering anything that you want to be delivering? I forget where this comes from. It stems from some wisdom somewhere, but it's a miss. It's a total miss to say something that is meant to be heard in a way in which it cannot be. And
deep,
right? Oh, don't worry. We're just scratching the surface. But like that whole idea of like, if I have something that I want someone to receive and I give it to them in a way in which they can't receive it, like whose responsibility is it on?
Yeah.
And it's on me. Like, think about love, right? That we have the 5 love languages. And like, why even like look at those things? Because if you want someone to feel loved by you, then you have to learn the way in which they feel love and then give it to them in that way.
Delivery. Yeah. Yeah. So personal development plus comedy.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
Because those are like two just like it's like happiness in a jar.
Yeah. I've discovered that I'm a being of joy. Like that's what I'm here to do, is to feel and create joy and help others find their joy and go after it themselves.
Okay, I'm going to challenge you on that, Ross.
Great.
Because a lot of comedians come from like kind of this like negative place that they then feel this desire that they want to make people laugh.
Yeah, it's usually coming from a place of lack. A sense of humor is usually a defense mechanism. Why do you think people think Jews are so funny? Like we've had to be. Are you Jewish? Yeah, Goldstein. I didn't want to assume. I didn't want to assume your religion or gender. So
Thanks.
no problem. But that whole like we've survived so much, and it's that whole like, well, if things are going to get dark, we must find the light within it. And that's, I think, where like the origins of comedy has started. Comedy is tragedy plus time. So there is a way that a lot of comedians have gone into doing comedy as a defense mechanism. But that's also why a lot of comedians are also very depressed, not to like call them out. But I think we're kind of shifting into a new age. I hope we're shifting into a new age, because I promised myself I was never going to be the comedian that was depressed, that was like sad about himself. And that's how I got into the personal development stuff, is it was like, I love this stuff. And we get the opportunity as comedians to deliver so much joy and happiness. And we could either go into this world as like, it's like I win, you lose, you win, I lose, or it could be a win-win. And I think that there's a way to do comedy as a win-win, where it's like we're both having fun with each other. And from a young age, I always wanted to be famous. And the reason why I wanted to be famous was because of the idea of, if I'm famous, I have friends everywhere. Like I will just have friends all over the world. And it did initially come from a place of me being, I was not cool in elementary school. I did not feel popular in middle school. I was teased, I was bullied, and all I wanted was for people to like me. So that's totally where this started. And just because we have a trauma or a defense mechanism that develops something that we're good at, a strong suit, call it, doesn't mean that we can't heal the wound underneath it and still maintain the benefits that wound gave us.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's really what it's all about, I think. The benefits that the wound gave us is really where we thrive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you get started? Like, comedy is not an easy path.
No, what a great question. I don't think I ever was not doing comedy. Like I loved Scrubs. Like that was like the TV show that I come back to. Scrubs and Family Guy. Like, hey, what's up? Upper middle class white guy. But like I loved Scrubs and Family Guy, and my friends and I would always like riff and reference Scrubs and be like, oh, like this is such a Family Guy joke. And it would just be fun. It was our joy. And people always go towards their joy. So I would start writing my own scripts and writing my own like ideas for TV shows. And that just never let up. And then I started like in college making things just with like a video camera. That was like a terrible video camera. And then we got on the UATV, University of Arizona television station, and they were like, we can't air this. And like, it wasn't that it wasn't good. It was like, they were like a serious news show, and they're like, we can't air this. It's funny, but like, we can't put this on our show. Would you guys like your own show? And we're like, yes. So we started making whatever we wanted, whatever we found to be funny, and we put it on YouTube. And then all of a sudden, like, we had 50,000 views on a YouTube video back in 2007.
Yeah.
And it was just like, whoa,
wow.
Who's watching this? And people would like be like, you guys are funny. And again, it was like a thing that like people liked us because we were funny. And I just never stopped going towards that. And so I graduated. I worked on the Colbert Report as an intern, and I got a joke on the show while I was working there. And I remember like hearing Stephen Colbert say the joke that I wrote, and hearing the audience laugh and knowing that this was going out to the country. It was just like a light bulb moment. I was like, oh, this is what my life. But I learned so much from Colbert, just about like how to approach comedy. Like Colbert and Conan are both like incredible inspirations for me, and they both have this like real love in their heart, and I feel like this wisdom like that runs through all that they do. But as interns, we got an opportunity to talk to Stephen Colbert, and he told us about like one of his humor philosophies, which is you never make the victim of a situation the punchline of the joke, because people will laugh, but it sounds like they have blood in their mouths. And I never forgot that. And I've even experimented with it. I made a joke about Lindsay Lohan one time, and it was a sharp joke. I was like proud of the construction of it, but then part of me felt bad because Lindsay Lohan is a human, and she's like going through her own thing.
Yeah.
And so I really try to never punch down on people. Like even Donald Trump. I will never punch down on Donald Trump because it's like it's a little bit easy. And if I don't think that divisive comedy will ever unite us. You're just preaching to the choir, and you can articulate things in a better way than other people would be able to. But I can be critical of Donald Trump without making fun of him. Mm-hmm. Like I can be critical of Donald Trump by praising Vladimir Putin. Like that's part of my show is like I say like I've worked with, a very public persona to win a presidential election, Vladimir Putin. And that type of thing is like my way of still being able to speak about what I want to speak, but I'm still lifting up Vladimir Putin.
So there's a lot of risk though that you take in comedy.
Always.
And also a risk not only in content, but also in how it's received.
You can't control how it's received.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like as long as I can like really feel good about what I'm putting out there, even if it's not received well, I still have like I knew in my heart when I'm very consciously putting stuff out there. I'm not like, oh, here's a thought, throwing it out there. I'm like putting it through my filter, my own standards. And if it doesn't pass my standards, I don't put it out there. So if it goes out there and people are like, oh, we don't like this so much, I could feel pretty good about it because I'm like, you know what, some people will. And I have my own rules, my own moral guidelines for comedy.
What's one of them?
Never punch down.
Never punch down.
Yeah. And of course that shifts because I know like as you know we have like a bunch of new stuff that's like kind of coming to light and our whole society is shifting about the way that we perceive people. Mm-hmm. And how like if you look at the comedians even back from the 90s where they're like, oh, you're gay, queer, like that type of stuff like killed in the 90s, but now it's just like that you can't do anymore. So like giving myself permission to elevate my standards with the times and also forgiving myself for the stuff that I did in the past before I knew better. And I'm sure that there's stuff that I'm doing today that I'm going to know better in the future and have to, again, forgive myself for what I'm doing today. But I'm really trying to like look down the road and saying like, how will this stand the test of time? And it's always a guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your failures.
My failures. Well, let's see. Like
it's kind of like a generic question.
I know.
Tell us about your failures.
Well, here's one of my favorites was I brought this show to Adelaide, Australia for the Fringe Festival. And that was like the first time I really got to do a run of it. And I would always be out like flyering kind of, hey, come see my show. And the way I would pitch it was, do you want to come see a feel-good comedy show? Right? Because no one would say no to that. And this one woman was like walking by and she like overheard me saying that to someone else. And she came back to find me. And she said, what's your show? And I handed her the flyer. She goes, okay. And she came and she sat in the front row and she was like maybe looked like in her mid 20s, but like a very young looking woman. And I'm doing the show and like there's also like this like 14-year-old girl that's like going bonkers, like super invested in like what the show is. And it's a parody of a personal development seminar. So I come out in character and I pretend like I'm the guru and every audience member is the audience member for the seminar. So it's interactive. And there's a certain part of the show where like I would do like a funny guided meditation. And one of the things that I said in the guided meditation was like, go back to your childhood when everything was okay. And like feel that now. And then when we kind of came back, I noticed that this, woman in the front row had kind of like moved into the fetal position. And I was like, great, like I can help you. I'm doubling down, So I had this part of the show where I brought someone up on stage and I made them dance. And I brought her up. I said, get up here. And she like kind of meekly came up to me and she had this like look of fear in her eyes. And she turned towards me and I see tears starting to well up. And she said, please don't make me do this. And I went, okay. So like I quickly like reversed and I put her back in the seat and I said like, stay after the show. I want to make sure you're okay. And I finished the show and the show ends with like people going, I love myself. I love myself. And this little 14-year-old girl is going, I love myself and like feeling herself. And it was incredible. And I just noticed like that woman was not feeling it. And I end the show and she books it out of the theater. And I'm wearing like this skin tight gold unitard that the show ends in. And I go, miss, ma'am. And I'm running after her. She's like, I'm fine, like running away from me down the stairs. And I'm like trying to, but I can't get to her. And I'm like, oh my God, like this girl is going to kill herself. I'm like, my show just ruined someone's life. Like, I don't know what happened. I pushed too hard on someone that I shouldn't push too hard on. So I go back to like the artist area and I'm just like devastated. thinking like, I can't do this anymore. This show is dangerous. Because I had this belief around personal development work that so many people call themselves life coaches, and they shouldn't be, because they're not. They're not trained in this stuff. They went to a personal development seminar, or they read a book and they're like, I have the answers. Let me help you. But if you unearth someone's like deep traumatic stuff, and you don't have the ability or the wherewithal or the know-how to bring them back up again, you've done damage. And my number one rule is don't do damage. And I was like, I just did damage. Like,